Right now on Morning News Now, Secret Service in the spotlight. This morning, we're getting a look at police body cam video showing the arrest of the suspect from the apparent second assassination attempt against Donald Trump. The new questions about the Secret Service and how they're handling the threats after the second attempt on the former president's life in 10 weeks, and the remarkable admission from the agency's acting director. Also this morning, Sean Diddy Combs arrested in the lobby of a New York hotel by federal agents. The rapper taken into custody amid a wave of lawsuits against him alleging sexual assault and misconduct. The big questions surrounding the indictment and what comes next for the music mogul turned defendant. Plus, time may be running out for TikTok. The fate of the popular social media app now rests in the hands of a federal appeals court. The fight over the First Amendment that now could decide whether the app is banned in the U.S. And raise your eyes to the sky. Tonight, millions of people will be treated to a rare celestial show that won't appear again until 2033. Got all the things, blood moon, full moon. We'll tell you about it in a little bit. Good morning. I'm Savannah Sellers. Joe Fryer's on assignment, so you're just with me today. We're glad you're here. We begin this Tuesday morning with the ongoing investigation into the apparent assassination attempt against former President Trump. He is set to host a town hall in Michigan today. That'll be his first public event since this past weekend's incident. The Martin County Sheriff's Office has released body cam footage showing the moment 58-year-old Ryan Wesley Ruth was taken into custody along I-95 on Sunday. He's accused of pointing a semi-automatic rifle towards the former president at his Florida golf course while hiding in the bushes. Ruth is now facing federal charges. Officials say the suspect did not fire his weapon and that Mr. Trump was not in his line of sight. Meanwhile, sources tell NBC News the Trump campaign has asked the Secret Service for increased security following the incident. The FBI says it's learning more about the suspect and his activity on Sunday.
We're continuing to conduct analysis, and we'll be compiling the subject's movements in the days and months leading up to September 15th. Cellular data shows that the subject was in the vicinity of the golf course roughly 12 hours before the engagement with the United States Secret Service.
NBC News law enforcement and intelligence correspondent Tom Winter joins us here on set with the very latest. Tom, good morning. So Ryan Ruth made his first appearance in federal court yesterday in Florida. What are we learning about him, and tell us the charges he's now facing?
Well, I think a couple of things. First off, as it pertains to his activity leading up to that moment when the Secret Service spotted him with that gun and fired on him, apparently he had been in the bushes there and in that tree line since 1:59 a.m. Sunday. Flash forward almost 12 hours later, and 1:30 when he spotted his former President Trump is on his way to the golf hole that's right next to where he was hanging out. They found that information by finding the number to his WhatsApp, which he had posted on Facebook. So very much a 2024 type investigation. As far as his charges, there are 2 weapons charges, and I think they're just initial holding charges to be able to say, you know what, let's keep this guy in custody, let's get him off the street, and then be able from here on out work on that investigation as they described. What were his motives behind this, and could that lead to more charges? The FBI has been out pulling surveillance camera tapes, taking hard drives from businesses and saying, look, we need to piece together this guy's timeline, and that's the work they're doing right now.
Let's talk about the response from the Secret Service. The agency's faced scrutiny since that first assassination attempt just about 9 weeks ago or so. We are now hearing from the agency's acting director, say acting because somebody has resigned in the wake of that first attempt. Now here we are. What do we know about the response? What more is being done to protect a former president? And should we take this as a lapse in security or not necessarily?
Well, they did find this person, and they did stop them from firing on Donald Trump. But I think in the near term, there's an immediate staffing concern as far as how are we going to add additional agents? How are we going to be able to start to make sure that there are no future incidents involving Donald Trump? Congress could pass a law today, and Savannah, you and I both know they're not going to be able to train agents and get them out in the street fast enough. But I think long term, there's now a bit of a sea change at the Secret Service, and the acting director talked about that yesterday.
Coming out of Butler, I have ordered a paradigm shift. The Secret Service's protective methodologies work, and they are sound. But the way we are positioned right now in this dynamic threat environment, it has given me guidance to say, you know what, we need to look at what our protective methodology is. We need to get out of a reactive model and get to a readiness model.
What the acting director is effectively saying, we're going to rip up parts of this playbook. And instead of us being in a position of we see a threat, we'll move whoever we're protecting, president, a vice president, candidate. We need to be out there a little bit more on the front lines. What do we need to be doing to push people back, to make a larger perimeter and be a little bit more aware of what are seemingly an incredibly high level of threats to all the candidates for this election?
So much to watch for here. We know you'll stay on it. We'll keep talking to you about it. Tom Winter, thank you very much. Let's turn now to our other top story. Rapper and music mogul Sean Diddy Combs is in federal custody this morning after he was arrested at a New York hotel last night. Authorities say his charges will be revealed later today when the indictment's unsealed. The arrest comes 6 months after Diddy's homes in Los Angeles and Miami were raided by federal agents. You might remember that, part of an investigation into allegations including sex trafficking. Combs has also been recently hit by a string of civil lawsuits accusing him of sexual assault and illegal distribution of guns and drugs. He denies all the allegations. NBC News correspondent Julia Ainsley joins us now to talk more on this. Julia, good morning. So first, just walk us through how the arrest unfolded last night, what we know this morning about what happened.
What we know, according to his lawyers, Diddy voluntarily returned back to New York because they were expecting a grand jury to issue this indictment that would lead to his arrest. He was at the Park Hyatt Hotel in New York City, where he was arrested around 8:30 p.m. last night. Now, he was arrested by Homeland Security Investigations. They're the investigative arm under ICE. Also another reason why I'm talking about Diddy, because I cover Homeland Security, in case you were wondering how I got into this. Homeland Security has been looking into Diddy basically for the last 6 months, at least that we know of. Even earlier, they were the ones who executed the search warrants in Miami and Los Angeles in March, and they've been doing this under a search warrant that was given to them by the Southern District of New York. So we can expect more details today to come from the Southern District here in Manhattan. But a key part of why it's important that Homeland Security Investigations was running this is to remember that this could have some international implications. We expect, based on what his lawyer said, that he might be charged with racketeering and sex trafficking. If there's any indications that that sex trafficking came from outside the country, that could bring up and make this even more serious. But already he's looking at possible racketeering charges, sex trafficking, as well as those civil lawsuits that accuse him of physical and sexual abuse.
Julia, first of all, you could cover anything and everything that you feel, so no questions there, but thank you for the explanation. Now remind us the details here, the allegations he's been facing, the lawsuits against him.
Yeah, let's walk through the timeline, Savannah. So late last year, a former girlfriend of his, known as Cassie, filed a lawsuit that was quickly settled, but she accused him of physical and sexual abuse. Then 3 other women came forward accusing him of sexual abuse during their relationships with him. 2 of those women were teenagers. And then all of a sudden, there was this big day in March. We can remember there was property searches of his homes in Miami and Los Angeles. We saw investigators walking out with electronics. And then Diddy's phone was taken when he was in Miami and an airport on his way to the Bahamas. There was a lot of interest in his communications. So it went beyond what happened in his relationships. People started to look at whether or not he was actually organizing what looks like sex trafficking. And that's really been the allegation at the heart of this now. It went beyond sexual abuse in relationships. And so we can expect today, based on what we saw from the U.S. attorney putting out on X last night, that they're going to move to unseal this indictment today. So we'll be able to look page by page about what investigators had, what the grand jury did decide to indict him for, and try to get a clearer picture of where Diddy stood in the middle of all of this potential sex trafficking and racketeering.
Julia, I'm going to ask you to tell us how Combs and his legal team are responding to this arrest. I know we have a full statement. I do have a question, though, about it after you read it, which is part of it says in there that he is not criminal, is part of what they are claiming. And I guess just for people who feel like there's been so much news around him, so many different accusations, now he's arrested. We saw those raids. One thing that we all saw with our own eyes was security footage from a hotel that dealt with Cassie and that accusation that you saw there. And assaulting somebody is a crime. So I guess I'm wondering, in light of their response that you're going to read to us, how we're supposed to take that, if there really is any room for a defense here that you could see.
It's a really good conversation. I'll read you the statement and then let's talk about that. His lawyers putting out last night, we are disappointed with the decision to pursue what we believe is an unjust prosecution. He is an imperfect person, but is not criminal. Please reserve your judgment until you have all the facts. These are the acts of an innocent man, nothing to hide, and he looks forward to clearing his name in court. Now, Often we see, Vanna, that people, celebrities, people with the kind of prowess of Diddy hire very good lawyers. And most of the things that they will say is that, you know, this is an imperfect person, sure, but their name will be cleared in court. That's really hard, though, in the age of social media when you're talking about the video like the one you've seen where it looks really clear to an observer that he is abusing someone. And so it's hard to get past that. I will say we've even seen his lawyers try to take to that same messaging platform using TikTok to go through visuals, go through criminal complaints, explain to viewers why they think he is still innocent and why all of this is a conspiracy against him. We should also say that those lawsuits that were filed, especially the one from Cassie, was done when New York opened a window for people with previously what would have been expired complaints to come forward. And so these are part of the arguments that we'll hear from his lawyer. But you're right, it's hard to make arguments about someone's innocence in an age when we're looking at videos.
Absolutely. Julia, you are great on reporting at Diddy. We appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. We know you'll stay on it. Well, parts of North Carolina are under a state of emergency this morning. It's after a strong post-tropical cyclone dumped more than 18 inches of rain along the coast. Multiple roads have either collapsed or closed, according to officials. People had to be rescued from their homes and cars because of the flooding. The floodwaters were up to 3 feet deep in some areas that forced schools and offices to close. The National Weather Service in Wilmington described the impact of the storm as a once-in-a-thousand-year flood. Terms like that we are hearing a lot more often. Let's get a closer look at the severe weather in the south with your morning News Now forecast. Angie Lassman is in studio with us. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Hi, Savannah. Good morning to you. Unfortunately, what you just described is those really incredible rains across the Carolinas and parts of the mid-Atlantic. They're still prompting these flood alerts that are going to be up likely through the rest of the day. We've got still 6 million people included in that. Charlotte, Cape Hatteras, Virginia Beach, Richmond, all included in that. And we potentially could see these expand into other parts of this region here as the day goes on. What's left over, those remnants of potential tropical cyclone 8, continue to move a little farther inland and taking with it all of that moisture. So that means folks across, especially the central Appalachians, you'll see some good amount of rain working through that region. The potential for flooding will be there, specifically in portions of southeast Virginia. That's one of the spots that we're going to watch closely as the day goes on for some more of that rain. Then as we get into tomorrow, much of that moisture lifts to the north. We'll see this coastal low kind of hang out. That's going to bring us the chance for the prolonged rain across the Northeast. It'll see sections of basically New York to Washington, D.C., leaving us with a bit of a difficult commute tomorrow at times. Soggy conditions in the picture. And you guessed it, a chance for some flooding. Here's where we're watching the flood concern today. Richmond to Norfolk, we have a slight risk, but it does include Asheville stretching out to Cape Hatteras and Roanoke as well. Raleigh still included in that as we kind of start to see the rain wind down in that area. But we could still pick up a little bit more. So not going to be surprising through Thursday if we get anywhere from another 3 to 6 inches across this region. It'll be something to watch. And then that'll stretch again up into the Northeast for tomorrow. So we'll need our umbrellas in that region. Meanwhile, how about this warmth? I mean, it feels like summer in some spots. Rapid City into the 90s. Minneapolis running 15 degrees above normal for this time of year. We've got 86 on tap there. Chicago, too. Even Cleveland a little above normal as well. And this kind of warmer than normal trend continues into tomorrow, too. Now, if you're looking for some cooler air, or I guess slightly cooler is what we should say, by the time we get to the end of the work week and maybe into the weekend, we'll see things kind of winding down back into those 70s on Thursday and Friday in New York, but the upper 70s. And then look what happens by Saturday, Savannah. We get to those low 70s, a couple of 80s still left over across that region, but it'll feel a little bit better for folks there.
There we go. Heading into fall. Angie, thank you so much. In a little bit. Well, Texas community is on edge after a natural gas pipeline exploded near Houston yesterday. The blast sent a tower of flames into the air that could be seen at least 10 miles away, forcing nearly 1,000 homes and businesses to evacuate. NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson has the details.
An explosion of flames consumed the skies in Deer Park, Texas, after officials say a natural gas pipeline erupted. What do you remember?
The boom. I mean, it was a loud explosion. It was a big fiery ball that went up to above those trees.
Behind Rosemarie Allen's home, flames and billowing black smoke. At least one firefighter has been injured, officials say. No word on how many structures may be damaged or destroyed.
A lot of the house structures that are adjacent to that are still catching on fire.
It keeps getting bigger.
Homes, schools, and several businesses ordered to evacuate. This video showing just how close the flames were to shopping centers. Students at nearby San Jacinto College forced to shelter in place.
It was just scary because I was like, what if it explodes again?
The cause of the inferno remains under investigation, officials say. The owner of the pipeline, Energy Transfer, saying in a statement an unknown car may have hit a pipeline valve. Officials say they've turned the pipeline off, but the community still on edge.
It'll be a while before it goes out.
Priscilla Thompson, NBC News, Deer Park, Texas.
The future of TikTok is in the U.S. is now in the hands of 3 federal judges after lawyers for the social media platform and the Justice Department argued their case before a federal appeals court yesterday. Now the judges have to decide if forcing the platform to sell or shut down is a violation of the First Amendment.
TikTok in court.
Save TikTok!
Getting its first chance to fight back against a law passed in April that could essentially ban the app in a matter of months. The government's concern that its Chinese-owned parent company could secretly influence Americans by manipulating what content is seen and exploiting user data.
The problem is that that same data is extremely valuable to a foreign adversary trying to compromise the security of the United States.
In heavily redacted court documents, the Justice Department and a senior U.S. intelligence official say they don't have direct evidence that China has used TikTok for propaganda in the U.S., but they say there is significant risk that could happen. TikTok arguing that's not enough.
They don't claim anything has happened yet. They claim there's future Chinese control, and therefore we can burden in a very significant way the speech of a U.S. entity and its users.
The judge is appearing sympathetic to claims from TikTok and a group of content creators that the law violates the First Amendment. But they pushed lawyers on why those protections should apply to a foreign-owned company. Right now, the app, used by 170 million Americans, is on the clock. If TikTok loses in court, it would have to sell to an American company by January, or it would face that effective ban.
Now, lawyers involved in the case have asked the judges to give their decision before early December. It really could come in just a matter of weeks. Legal experts say the Supreme Court is likely to decide whether to hear arguments on any appeal in the case, which is likely, before that ban is set to take effect in January. That could put any potential ban on hold for who knows how long, maybe even years. Let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Ceballos for more on this. Danny, good morning. Good to have you with us. We've had many conversations about this. So after more than 2 hours yesterday of oral arguments, which was about what was expected between both TikTok and the government, it's still unclear, of course, how the judges will rule in this case. Sometimes they sounded a little bit sympathetic to TikTok and this First Amendment case that they're making. But of course, it just all comes back to the Chinese ownership. What are the major takeaways for you?
First, when you're at a circuit appellate court like this, that is exactly what judges are supposed to do. You're not supposed to really know where they're leaning, and they're supposed to give each side difficult questions. And that's exactly what the judges did here at oral argument. This case involves a lot of really complex issues, but I think they can be boiled down to this. When Congress decides to act to protect the United States against a potential threat from not just any country, but a foreign adversary, what are the limitations? And can it override First Amendment concerns, not just for the U.S.-based entity, or I should just say a U.S. entity, but also for its users? What is the balancing test to be applied? According to ByteDance, they think it should be something that has long been known as strict scrutiny. It's a test that asks whether or not the legislation is necessary to achieve a compelling interest. And the practical effect of the strict scrutiny test that all law students are taught is that the government always loses. In other words, it's a test that is almost too difficult to meet the burden. So that would be a win for ByteDance.
The thing that struck me in covering this for a while is I have felt like when you hear the government arguing their case, it's almost like there is a smoking gun, but they want to keep it a secret because they're concerned about what revealing it could mean from a safety perspective, I suppose, from a national security perspective. And we got these court documents that I was able to go through yesterday. So much is redacted, but also importantly in there was a sentence where they basically just flat out said, we don't have any direct evidence that any of the stuff that we're worried about has actually happened yet, but they definitely make a compelling case that the risk is there, that the door could be open to that. What does that mean for their case? Like when you think about the judges aspect, not just people at home who are like, hey, I really like my TikTok, and if you haven't seen anything, I want to keep it. But does that say anything about the strength of kind of trying to prosecute TikTok?
Yeah, TikTok's argument is essentially that you didn't do this, Congress, for a good reason. The government's response is, sure we did. We have a lot of good reasons. They're right here in this paper. And TikTok's response is, yeah, all of this is blacked out. I can't read this. I don't know what's in here. We don't know what the threat is. And even the government concedes, well, there is no present threat, but there is a potential threat in the future from this foreign adversary, which doesn't even completely own the U.S. entity. And that's really what this case is going to boil down to is that enough? Now, we've had a lot of cases in which executive actions by agencies are challenged because the agencies don't give good reasons for their rules. But the court pointed out, this is not an agency. This is Congress, and Congress has considerable power to make its own findings and enact legislation. That's what Congress does. ByteDance, or TikTok's argument here, is that it just exceeded its boundaries, not only under the First Amendment, but I'm telling folks to watch this space on something called a bill of attainder. Congress cannot constitutionally just say, we're passing a law that Savannah is bad. And that's, I'm being glib, but that's really what the framers were concerned about, was legislative punishment, that Congress would just say, so-and-so is bad and he or she should be punished. And in a sense, ByteDance's arguing that's exactly what Congress did here. They didn't enact legislation that applies broadly to general foreign adversaries. They said, TikTok, you must divest or you're going bye-bye.
Right. A lot to walk through here, as
Yes.
I'm sure there's a pretty good chance, right, this ends up in the hands of the Supreme Court, should they decide to take it up. Danny Savalas, thank you so much. We'll keep talking about it. Got a lot more to get to this morning, including new information revealed about the last moments of that Titan submersible, the hearing into what went wrong, and the final message from those on board. First, though, new fallout from the Trump campaign's false claims of animal abuse in Ohio City. The real-world consequences now impacting everyone and everywhere, from schools to hospitals to the State House. That's up next.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
Well, it's been a week since that viral moment from the presidential debate that you just saw there, when former President Trump made those false claims about migrants abusing pets in Ohio. The damaging rhetoric is adding a new sense of fear across the city of Springfield. Schools, hospitals, even the Ohio State House have been closed in the past week due to threats of bombings and shootings that all turned out to be false alarms. While officials and police have repeatedly disputed the claims, Mr. Trump and his running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, are continuing to spread them. Joining us now with what this means for the Springfield community is Mei Lee Chai. She's a writer and creative writing professor at San Francisco State University. Good morning. Thank you so much for being with us. So first, I want to start by reading a tweet that went viral that you wrote here after the debate. You said, I have heard the immigrants come to town and eat pets, racist trope ever since I. This is very racism. In addition to that tweet going viral and you expressing that experience that you have had, you also have these ties to Springfield specifically. And I know you've recently shared a little bit about that as well online. So first, just tell us your connections to Springfield, what that city means to you and your family, what you know it as.
Well, this is so deeply disturbing. I'm glad you're covering this. My grandparents were the first Chinese couple to be married in Springfield in 1930. My grandmother came from Nanjing, China in 1928 to study at Wittenberg University for her master's degree. And then she married 2 years later in 1930. And then my grandparents went back to China, where my grandmother founded the first coeducational private elementary school in her hometown of Nanjing, based on the education, pedagogy she studied at Wittenberg. And then after this Chinese Civil War in 1949, the family, left China. And my father came to the United States in the 1950s and studied at Wittenberg University, his BA degree. So, it has been a very welcoming place for my family. And so it's deeply disturbing to read about all the attacks on the Haitian immigrant community and the Haitian Americans, and to hear this hateful rhetoric about immigrants in Springfield.
How have you seen these tropes play out in your own life? The way that you put that, this is very old racism. I've heard this ever since I was a child. What did you think when you heard what was said at the debate and what's continually been repeated?
I couldn't believe my ears. I was just so shocked. I mean, this is something like a schoolyard taunt, right? I've heard this since, kindergarten. This is a really ignorant thing. People say, oh, you eat dogs, you eat cats, right? I've heard this directed at myself. I've heard this directed at other, frankly, Asian immigrants, not against Haitians before. And then when I was in high school, we were living in a small town in the Midwest in South Dakota, and a Cambodian family opened our town's first Chinese restaurant, and we were so thrilled. It was fantastic food, but there was this rumor, they're serving cats and dogs. And so ultimately, people threatened the restaurant owners, they threatened the family, and they were frightened, and they ended up selling the restaurant and moving away. So this, things I've experienced in my own life. And then just as a writer, I did research, and, this dates to the 1880s in the United States. This is dates to the Chinese exclusion era, which began in 1882, and which expanded in 1888 to the Oriental Exclusion Act. And it was always a political charge saying that, Chinese and Asian immigrants are unassimilatable and that they eat pets, whether it's cats or dogs or even rats, and they're serving it in their restaurants. It was a lie then, and it's a lie now.
Part of what fueled this particular trope and this particular falsehood kind of having the legs that it has had has been social media, has been really misinformation. Not only does it have these roots to racism as you're describing, but essentially, as we understand it and according to authorities in the area, a video having nothing to do with migrants that involved a woman who was born in Ohio, that an incident was going on that involved a pet, a cat, was sort of misconstrued to be related to Haitian immigrants in the area. You're describing, and very smartly so, giving us a history lesson, really going back into the 1800s, when, of course, things like Instagram did not exist. How scary do you think it is that we have the spread of misinformation on top of the racism that you're describing, and social media platforms to spread it?
Well, what's terrifying about it is that, the woman who first put this false post on Facebook, and who's now admitted she didn't actually have any credible information, it was just a rumor she was, relaying, she did not intend for this to go viral. And so once the genie's out of the bottle, it's really hard, right, to put back in. And now you've right-wing groups, you've got neo-Nazi groups attacking people, and the mayor of Springfield has, called for people to help the city, to stop this, and people are feeling extremely anxious and extreme fear. And so that's where with social media and all of these different memes and ways to spread misinformation in the present day is even more terrifying. Although, frankly speaking, even in the 1880s, they would printed little cards, were called trading cards, with images of Chinese caricatured and eating, rats on a plate, and it was meant to spread terror. And it did lead to lynchings. It led to mobs attacking Chinese-owned businesses. So this meme is never, innocent. It's always meant to inspire violence and to inspire fear in the communities that are being attacked.
Maylee Chai, very important context there, an important reminder that we need to continue to seek out information that's different from our own perspective and our own experiences. We appreciate you joining us this morning.
Thank you so much, Savannah, for covering this. Thank you.
Well, there are new details this morning about the moments right before the Titan submersible imploded on its ill-fated trip to explore the Titanic last summer. You, of course, remember this story. Well, the new information comes from the beginning of highly anticipated hearings led by the Coast Guard, looking into what exactly happened just over a year ago when the OceanGate Titan imploded, killing all 5 people on board. Here's NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello with the details.
The U.S. Coast Guard is presenting the most complete look yet at the final moments of the OceanGate Titan submersible, lost while on a mission to explore the wreck of the Titanic. The Coast Guard showed this never-before-seen animation tracking the Titan and its support vehicle, the Polar Prince. Messages sent back and forth between those two ships, including one chilling communication sent from Titan, quote, "All good here," sent less than an hour before Titan went silent. And on the first day of a weeks-long hearing, testimony from the former head of engineering at OceanGate, who said CEO Stockton Rush ignored concerns about Titan's design.
Most people would just eventually back down from Stockton. Like it was almost death by 1,000 cuts.
Tony Nissen saying he refused to dive in the submersible that he helped design.
He wanted me to be the pilot that runs the Titanic missions, and I told him I'm not getting in it.
He was right not to. On the morning of June 18th, 2023, the submersible began its voyage. The sub had 5 on board, including Rush, but about 3 hours into the descent, the vessel lost contact with its support ship. The final message from the Titan reading, dropped to WTS, an abbreviation for dive weights, meaning the sub may have been trying to rise, not dive, just seconds before it imploded. Roughly 8 hours passed before OceanGate notified authorities. That, according to the Coast Guard. The search was on.
The clock is ticking. They may not have much more time.
Which we covered extensively. A massive grid search. For the next 3 days, the world watched with bated breath as Titan was only built with a 96-hour supply of oxygen. A glimmer of hope as a Canadian aircraft flagged what it believed could be man-made sounds from the ocean.
Can you describe what the noise sounds like that they're hearing? They're trying to put all the pieces together. The noises have been described as banging noises.
But what we didn't know then, on the day the Titan disappeared, the U.S. Navy detected a, quote, sound that is consistent with an implosion or explosion, but not definitive, located near where the sub went missing. That information passed on to the Coast Guard, but not reported publicly. It meant that Titan's occupants likely died instantly under the immense crushing pressure of the deep sea.
Most experts I talked to say there may not be any more victims' remains on the bottom of the ocean.
On the 4th day of the search, a robotic vessel took this picture, released for the first time, showing shattered pieces of Titan's hull and tragically confirming the fate of everyone on board.
Our thanks to Tom Costello for that new information as well as that look back. Coming up, a disturbing discovery after scientists find microplastics in brain tissue. We're going to break down the new study and the potential health concerns associated with the find. Stay with us. Back with a new study that has some scientists raising concerns about our environmental health and its impacts on the human body. Over the years, microplastics, a word you probably started to hear more, they've been found in almost every organ in the body, as well as in the bloodstream. But now, for what seems to be the first time, these microscopic pollutants have been found in tissue in the human brain. NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar is here to explain what this new research means. This is one of those ones where you're like, I'm worried about it, don't think I can do anything about it, but you're going to tell me if I can. So let's first start with the information. It's a new study. It found microplastics in the olfactory bulb of multiple people, I understand, during autopsies. Yes. This is responsible, you kind of might remember this from bio or whatever, wherever you learn this. Yes. It processes information, smell, things like that. Yeah. According to the study, does that mean we're breathing in these what could this mean?
Well, so experts are saying that this is a very reasonable concept, that the nose would be a portal of entry to the brain. As you pointed out in the intro, there has been many of reports now that microplastics found in kidney tissue, liver tissue, placental tissue. There was an article in the spring that showed that people who had microplastics in the carotid artery that, that could increase the risk of heart attack and stroke. So what they are surmising here is that if you have inflammation in nasal passages, the microplastics, it's easier for them to get in. The olfactory bulb, if you Google it, it sits right here at the top of the nose, and it's basically a conduit to the brain. But now we're taking it one step beyond what the information showed. It showed that it was in the olfactory bulb. I think the next step would have been to do autopsy on the brain tissue itself to see if there are microplastics there. And then the next leap, Savannah, is what does that really mean for human health, right? The concern is that it potentially could increase the risk for neurodegenerative disease, but we have zero evidence that that is the case at this time.
So let's also define a microplastic. Yes. We've been showing some pictures of people with little bits of plastic, it looks like, on their fingertips. There's some behind you. I guess, especially in the context of this one, if we're talking about it like entering through the nose, it's not like we see those just flying through the air.
No.
So what's going on?
In fact, they're really, really small to see.
Right. I feel like these pictures might be a little bigger than they actually are.
Yeah. The largest microplastic is about 5 millimeters, and then it goes down to 1/5 of a meter, and then a nanometer measure in the billionths, even really, really difficult to say. And we're showing, look at our viewers, our viewers can see, they are ubiquitous. They are everywhere. They're in hands. They're in beer, synthetic garments.
So they're in the things you're consuming. It's not just like you can avoid them.
Exactly. But you can, right? Because then the next step is, I mean, yes, of course, like everything we touch and we do and we ever, like it's in our environment. But if we're talking about the ones that are really concerning, something called phthalates, those are one microplastic sort of degradation of plastics that we think could be like hormone disrupting. We talk about that a lot for kids who are going through puberty, that it could be impacting them. But can you avoid them? Well, yeah, because anything that has a large plastic that you're using, a plastic bottle, you don't want to put that in the dishwasher. You don't want to put that in the microwave. You want to swap out your plastic bottles and use glass and tin, let's say, containers. So there are little measures that we can make in our daily lives. But like I said before we even went on air, like unless you want to live on an island somewhere by yourself, you really can't avoid them 100% of the time. That's just not realistic.
That's good advice too. So in your own home, like if you're like going to use a container to save your leftovers.
Yes.
Switch to glass, things like that.
You can switch to glass, and then there's, you know, on the bottom of those plastic containers, they have a number that like categorizes them in terms of plastics. I'm not an expert at this, but the plastic number 3 is the one that is the most concerning for our health, according to experts. That's the one you might want to especially not put in the dishwasher, not put in the microwave. That I knew about, the microwave, but the dishwasher I'm forgetting, and I'm thinking about all our Tupperware. I'm going to go home and check, because we do that, right? I mean, out of convenience in our modern day and the way we live, again, hence this like concept of you can't control for all of it, but we can, I think we do have some control for some of it.
I mean, and we put you in the position on the show and here at NBC News of like, tell us a new thing that's going to completely revolutionize our lives.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm always on a new kick, right? Like lately I'm like, I have to heal my gut. I've heard it's the second brain.
That's
there's
true
so many things that you have to do. And it's like, should I take this supplement in the morning? Should I drink this or that? Tell us on this one, is this something we should be factoring into the whole calculus of wellness that we're all dealing with these days, or is there not really much we can do?
So maybe it's somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
You know, if that makes sense. I mean, I'm a little bit older than you, so I've already gotten to the point where I've kind of thrown my hands up and I've said, you know, I mean, what am I going to do? Because I'm never going to leave my house again, right? Because at every turn there lurks another health threat. But I think like with this, we have the information we have. We have found them. There's been one study that's maybe shown an association with actual clinical disease. We will see. There will probably be more to come. So again, the things that are within your control that you can do, why don't you just start doing them and make it part of your wellness journey or your wellness lifestyle? But I think losing sleep over this, no.
Okay. There's so much to think about. Dr. Azar, thank you so much. Great to see you as always. Well, let's stay on your health, but let's switch over to our weekly mental health check-in. We're going to start off with the latest on how one of this year's hottest singers is speaking out about her mental health and the pressures of fame. And we're also going to talk about the trend of going to extreme lengths to get the perfect night's sleep. But is it doing more harm than good? We're going to find out the latest on all that and more with the help from our friend, psychotherapist Dr. Robbie Ludwig. Good morning, Dr. Ludwig. Always great to have you with us. Okay, I'm obsessed with Chappell Roan personally. I find her whole story fascinating, that she has been in the game for a while. We kind of just heard about her, but now she has had this breakout moment. And with that, she has been really vocal about serious mental health struggles throughout her career. First, let's listen to her talking about fans. This has made some news lately, who she says are crossing boundaries.
I don't care that this crazy type of behavior comes along with the job. I'm allowed to say no to creepy behavior.
In a new interview, she's also talking about not filming a video for one of her hit songs. It's called Good Luck Babe, excuse me, because she's just tired. That video there has created a lot of conversation, right? Because it's kind of this whole idea of this fan culture and how much is too much. But in addition to that, she's also opened up about being suicidal. I mean, she's really put it all out there. So what can we learn about taking care of our own mental health? And even if you are somebody as famous as she has suddenly become, to be sharing it.
Yeah, well, it's so interesting and empowering to see a young artist set these kinds of limits. And it's something that we're not really used to seeing, because the older generation had what was called almost a disease to please. We wanted to say yes to things we felt we needed to do. And the younger Gen Z generation is more emotionally intelligent and plugged into themselves. They may also have had therapy where they begin to learn the insight into what certain choices produce for themselves. And so there's this understanding you don't need to say yes. You can create boundaries for yourself in order to take ownership of your mental well-being. And so this very famous singer is now saying, I don't have to say yes to videos. I don't have to say yes to fans' poor behavior. I can say no and start a different conversation and really protect my mental well-being, which is a very important message for everyone, including a younger generation of fans.
Absolutely. So many fans of hers. And by the way, if you or anyone you know is struggling, please do call or text the suicide prevention line. It's just 988. Okay, I also now want to ask you about this extreme sleep trend. It's called sleep maxing. It's where you go to these extreme lengths or just do things some people might have never heard of just to try to get a good night's rest. This is things like propping nostrils open. I don't even understand how that works or what tool you would use to do so. But I have heard a lot about mouth taping. And to be completely honest, I've thought about trying it. We know how important sleep is. Is any of this dangerous or counterproductive?
You know, any one of these new trends might help somebody to sleep better. And I always say whatever works, you should continue to do. This new trend is also called orthosomnia, which means perfect or straight sleep. And what experts tell us is there is no such thing. You know, we don't have a perfect sleep that we can achieve every single night. And some of these sleep tractors actually defeat the purpose. It gets people to be more obsessional about the data instead of looking at what actually helps them to have a better night's sleep, which is determined by how do you feel. So in general, anything that gets you to feel obsessional can keep you awake at night and is, you know, defeats the purpose because anxiety and obsession interferes with sleep. So to stick to the tried and true, which is good sleep hygiene, go to sleep at the same time, wake up at the same time, get into sunshine in the morning so that we can correct our rhythm, don't have alcohol before bed or caffeine, and just try to relax and give yourself a break.
Dr. Robbie Ludwig, great advice. Always great to see you. Thank you so much. Coming up, the value of gold is hitting new record highs, but what does that mean for the communities mining and refining that gold? We went to West Africa to dig into that story. It's up next. Welcome back. Let's get financial headlines this morning. Meta is pulling the plug on Russian media outlet RT. CNBC's Pippa Stevens joins us now with that and more. Money headlines. Pippa, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah. Well, social media giant Meta announced that it's banning Russian outlet RT days after U.S. officials accused the platform of disinformation. The Biden administration claimed RT was acting as an arm of Moscow's spy agencies. A Meta spokesperson said in a statement that RT and related entities are now banned from apps globally for foreign interference activity. Russia has previously denied using information operations to interfere in America's elections or other foreign politics. OpenAI announced that its Safety and Security Committee will now become an independent board oversight committee. The committee was first introduced in May as OpenAI dealt with controversy over security processes. The company says it will now oversee the safety and security processes guiding OpenAI's model deployment and development. According to OpenAI, the group will be chaired by Zico Coulter. He's the director of the machine learning department at Carnegie Mellon University. And basketball icon Michael Jordan has finally found a buyer for his mansion in suburban Chicago. The Highland Park home was originally listed for $29 million in 2012, but was reduced to $14.9 million in 2015. This ultra custom mansion is on a 7-acre lot with 9 bedrooms, 19 bathrooms, and boasts an indoor basketball court and a home gym. The number 23 adorns the front gate in honor of Jordan's legendary jersey number. Savannah, 19 bathrooms. Yeah, that's a lot of bathrooms.
I remember that was on the market for so long. Interesting one. All right, Pippa, thank you so much. We'll get ready for a cosmic cruise. After the break, we're sitting down with astrophysicist and friend of the show, Dr. Paul Sutter, to discuss why tonight's supermoon is even more rare than you might think. Stay with us. That's up next. Welcome back. If you're a longtime viewer of Morning News Now, you know we love a good space story. Well, tonight, get this, it's a full moon, but it's going to be a little bit more exciting than usual because it coincides with a partial lunar eclipse. And it's going to be even easier to see, look at that picture, because the full moon is actually a supermoon, meaning it is at its closest point to Earth. For more, let's bring in Dr. Paul Sutter. He's an astrophysicist, a NASA advisor, and also the author of the book you see right here, How to Die in Space, a journey through dangerous astrophysical phenomena, which sounds terrifying. Dr. Sutter, always great to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, I think I said something incorrect now that I'm realizing it at the top of the show, where I said something about I threw blood moon in there because I don't know the difference between supermoon and full, all these different things. So first, let's just start. Can you explain what we are going to see tonight?
Yes, tonight is a triple treat with the moon. Like you mentioned, it's a full moon tonight, which is always beautiful and stunning to look at. Second, it's a super moon. The orbit of the moon is not a perfect circle. Sometimes it's a little closer, sometimes it's a little further. When it's closest and coincidentally at a full moon, we call it a supermoon. So it'll be a little bit bigger, a little bit brighter. And lastly, tonight we get a partial lunar eclipse. This is when the Earth casts a shadow on the moon. So the moon looks a little bit darker. A little piece of it might turn a little bit red depending on when you view it. But it is definitely a sight to behold tonight.
So, of course, we remember when eclipse mania just like took over the country, or at least the path of totality across the country. Explain the difference between that type of eclipse and what's going to happen tonight.
Absolutely. So the eclipse we had in April was a solar eclipse, and that's when the moon blocked the sun and cast its shadow on the Earth. Now the situation is reversed with a lunar eclipse. The Earth is going to block the sun and cast a shadow on the moon. We're standing on the moon. The Earth is moving into the sun.
Our moon alien friends get the experience
Exactly.
this time. I hope they've got enough of those eclipse glasses there. Doctor, when and where is it going to be visible tonight? If you want to check this out, is it just certain parts of the country, or will it look kind of amazing no matter where you are?
That's one of the best parts of a lunar eclipse. It is pretty much the entire Earth has a giant shadow. So North and South America, most of Europe, Africa, we're all going to get to enjoy. Start around 9 o'clock. The peak will be around 10:45 p.m. That's when the moon will look the darkest. And a little sliver of it will start to turn red if you have a nice clear view of it. And then it will end a couple hours after that. So just tonight, think like 10:45 at 11 o'clock, go out, look for the moon, and you'll get a nice view.
Do we need any type of eyewear, or can we just stare at it?
Nope, you don't need any special glasses. You don't need a telescope. You don't need anything. Just go outside. You just need a clear, dark sky. You will enjoy it.
How is this? Like these different things are lined at the same time. The full moon, the partial eclipse. I'm forgetting one other thing. Oh, the supermoon. Is that what it's called?
The supermoon. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's rare, not as rare as a total solar eclipse. So to give you some perspective, a full moon happens once a month. A supermoon happens a few times a year. And then a lunar eclipse, especially a partial lunar eclipse, happens once or twice a year. So you have all of these different cycles, and then it just happens to land on top of each other this month. So maybe once every other year or so, we get a coincidence like this.
In some of these pictures, I mean, the moon is looking like it's fake, or like it does in a movie or something, like this one right here. I mean, just how massive it looks right behind this bridge. This one right here with this plane right in front of it. It's just absolutely beautiful. This right here in New York City with the Statue of Liberty. Is it really going to appear that large that it does almost kind of look fake or like so out of the ordinary?
It won't appear that gigantic. These pictures are taken with like telescopic lenses, and so it distorts the sizes near the horizon. It will look bright. It will also look a little bit darker than normal, especially during the peak of that eclipse. So it will look a little eerie or spooky, and it will look gorgeous. And if you want to break out the binoculars, go ahead. If you just have backyard binoculars, take a look at the moon. Look at the edges of the shadows of the Earth's shadow on the moon. Check out the craters, check out boulders, check out mountains. The moon is one of the best stargazing targets because it's right there. It's beautiful and easily accessible.
How are you going to enjoy this? Wait, what are we? So is it called a supermoon eclipse? Is that the term?
Yeah, we can call it whatever we want here. It's a full supermoon lunar eclipse.
Okay, how will you be watching and viewing the full supermoon lunar eclipse?
I will be watching right from my backyard, and that's you don't need to go anywhere special unless you live in the depths of a gigantic city. Go out in your backyard. Look at the moon, just try to get some clear skies, hope there aren't any clouds, and just enjoy the show. Give yourself a chance to disconnect, to forget the day, forget tomorrow, and just enjoy this beautiful celestial wonder.
I love it. Doctor, it's so great to have you with us. Such an exciting one. We love space news, and this is good news for everybody, it sounds like, except for me, I guess, who lives right in the depths of the biggest city. But maybe I'll be able to see a little bit. Thank you so much. Always great to see you.
Thank you so much, and enjoy the sky tonight.
Thank you. That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now. Don't go anywhere, though. The news continues right now. Good morning and happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for being with me this morning. I'm Savannah Sellers. Joe is on assignment right now on Morning News Now. Sean Diddy Combs in custody this morning. The hip-hop mogul arrested by federal authorities here in New York overnight. But exactly why he was detained, well, that remains under wraps. We've got more on that and how Combs' legal team is now responding to it all in just a moment. We're also learning more about that apparent assassination attempt involving former President Trump. The service now saying that the suspect, when Ruth, did not have a clear line of sight to Mr. Trump on Sunday. Did he fire at any agents? Released body cam footage shows the moment Ruth was taken into custody on Sunday. We're covering it all as the former president prepares to return to the campaign trail later tonight. Plus, some big changes are coming to Instagram this morning. Meta just announced special new accounts tailored to teens. But will it give them the protection they need? We'll be speaking to Meta's head of safety a little later. And summer might not be over quite yet, but that's not stopping some big retailers from the holiday spirit a little early. We've got the inside scoop on where you can snag some steals and deals to get a bit ahead and start on all of your Christmas shopping. Okay, I love Christmas more than most people. I would probably say, I don't know if it's time yet. Let's ease in. Let's do Halloween. Let's do Thanksgiving. Thanks again for joining us this morning. Well, we're going to continue to learn more details about this past weekend's apparent assassination attempt on former President Trump. Body cam footage released by the Martin County Sheriff's Office shows the moment the suspect, Ryan Wesley Ruth, was taken into custody. He's now facing 2 firearm-related charges. It comes as the Secret Service's acting director is now responding to Sunday's incident. NBC's Garrett Hake has the latest from West Palm Beach, Florida.
Donald Trump returning to the campaign trail for the first time since Sunday's apparent assassination attempt. He's set to attend a town hall tonight in Battleground, Michigan, overnight praising his protectors in law enforcement for their fast action.
The Secret Service did an excellent job, and they have the man behind bars, and hopefully he's going to be there for a long time.
Investigators say a Secret Service agent monitoring the woods ahead of Mr. Trump as he played golf on Sunday saw a rifle barrel through the tree line and opened fire.
The subject, who did not have line of sight to the former president, fled the scene. He did not fire or get off any shots at our agent.
Republican donor and Trump friend Steve Witkoff was golfing with the former president Sunday and spoke with us late Monday.
You hear the shots. How quickly does the Secret Service act?
2 seconds, maybe 3. The entire team converged on top of him, except for the snipers.
The suspect quickly tracked down by local law enforcement.
It was probably the highest profile stop this sheriff's office has ever made.
His arrest captured on this body camera video, first obtained by NBC News. Ryan Wesley Ruth has a lengthy criminal history, including a conviction for possession of a machine gun. On Monday, federal prosecutors charged him with possession of a firearm by a prohibited person and possession of a firearm with an obliterated serial number. Cell phone records show he had been in place at the edge of the golf course for nearly 12 hours. Ruth's social media posts paint a picture of a disillusioned former Trump supporter who became an advocate for Ukraine and supporter of Democratic politicians. This incident is likely to draw new scrutiny to the embattled Secret Service agency.
Have you briefed former President Trump on your findings so far, and has his campaign asked for any changes in his security going forward after yesterday?
I've had a conversation with the former president. The president is aware that he has highest levels of protection that the Secret Service is providing him.
Our thanks to Garrett Haig for that report. Well, hip-hop music mogul Sean Diddy Combs remains in custody this morning after he was arrested. Combs was detained in New York last night on an indictment that's expected to be unsealed later today. His arrest comes 6 months after his homes in Los Angeles and Miami were raided by federal agents as part of an investigation into allegations including sex trafficking, which he denies. NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas has the latest.
Hey there, guys. This is a fast-moving story, and as we first reported in July, a grand jury in New York had been hearing evidence against Combs, one of hip-hop's most successful producers and entrepreneurs.
Hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs is in custody this morning after being detained overnight by federal authorities in New York. According to a person familiar with the situation, Combs was caught off guard by his arrest in the lobby of the Park Hyatt Hotel, where he'd been living for several weeks. The arresting charges are part of a sealed indictment that authorities say will likely be released later this morning. But it comes 6 months after law enforcement sources told NBC that federal agents searched Combs' properties in Miami and Los Angeles, finding guns and seizing computers and cell phones. Those raids carried out on search warrants out of New York into allegations of sex trafficking, according to a source familiar with the matter. Since November 2023, Combs has also been hit with multiple civil lawsuits with similar allegations, including sexual assault, sex trafficking, and illegal distribution of guns and drugs. Combs' attorney released a statement late Monday calling him an innocent man with nothing to hide, writing, "He is an imperfect person, but is not criminal," adding, "Please reserve your judgment until you have all the facts." Just last week, former Danity Kane member Dawn Richard alleging in a lawsuit Combs sexually assaulted her, deprived her of food and sleep, and refused to pay her adequately. In a statement, Combs' attorney called it an attempt to rewrite history and said Richard had manufactured a series of false claims, all in the hopes of trying to get a payday. In May, CNN aired this disturbing video of the rapper chasing down and attacking his longtime girlfriend Cassie Ventura at a Los Angeles hotel in 2016.
My behavior on that video is inexcusable.
The hip-hop producer issuing an apology video after the footage became public, acknowledging the incident which he'd previously denied.
I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now.
Attorneys representing some of the plaintiffs who have filed some of the civil suits against Sean Diddy Combs, they released a statement overnight, and it reads in part that the evidence is very clear and it was only a matter of time, and that this is an important step towards justice. Now, Combs has denied all of these allegations, and his attorney saying in a statement that he voluntarily relocated actually to New York recently in anticipation of these charges. Back to you.
All right, Chloe, thank you so much. Well, President Biden and Vice President Harris are condemning the apparent assassination attempt on the former president, but as they call on Americans to lower the temperature. Mr. Trump and his running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, are ramping up their rhetoric against Democrats. NBC News Chief White House Correspondent Peter Alexander joins us now with the latest. Peter, good morning.
Savannah, good morning. Both the vice president and former President Trump are back on the trail today. Harris will be in Philadelphia, Trump later in Flint, Michigan. And their return to the road comes amid these heightened tensions, as you note, in this political season with those new calls today to calm things down. You'll remember after a would-be assassin targeted him in July, Trump briefly called for unity. But after this week's scare in a new interview overnight, Trump is blaming his political opponents, telling a Washington Post columnist, quote, "I really believe that the rhetoric from the Democrats is making the bullets fly."
In the wake of the apparent assassination attempt against former President Trump, President Biden and Vice President Harris are urging all Americans to lower the temperature, forcefully condemning political violence.
No place in political violence for political violence in America. None. Zero. Never.
The vice president in a statement after the incident saying, "We all must do our part to ensure that this incident does not lead to more violence," echoing her comments after the first attempt on Trump's life in July.
Violence is never acceptable. There can be no equivocation
about that.
A White House official says President Biden and Trump spoke Monday, with the president conveying his relief that his predecessor is safe. Trump complimenting President Biden after their call.
He called up to make sure I was okay. He couldn't have been nicer.
Still, Trump is not backing down from inflammatory rhetoric, telling Fox News that President Biden and Harris are people that want to destroy our country. It's called the enemy from within. They are the real threat, he said. Trump's running mate J.D. Vance blaming the left for provoking violence.
No one has tried to kill Kamala Harris in the last couple of months, and 2 people now have tried to kill Donald Trump in the last couple of months. I'd say that's pretty strong evidence that the left needs to tone down the rhetoric.
And the White House quickly slammed Elon Musk's recent comments as irresponsible after his weekend post on X appearing to question why no one has even tried to assassinate President Biden or Harris. Musk later deleted the post and said it was a joke. A top Republican, Senator Mitt Romney, also calling for calm.
Over the weekend, I saw that President Trump suggested he hated Taylor Swift. I think cooling down the rhetoric would be a good thing on both sides.
That came after Trump Sunday morning declared, "I hate Taylor Swift" on his social media site, just days after the superstar endorsed Harris in an Instagram post to her 284 million followers.
We should note that today is National Voter Registration Day, and just this morning the Harris campaign has announced its plans to mobilize young voters to register. That's going to be the running mate of Harris, Tim Walz's motivation today for his visits on the road. And on Monday, Trump's voter registration pitch included an attack targeting the vice president, arguing that Harris's immigration policies, in his words, are killing the legacy of Black and Hispanic voters. Savannah, back to you.
All right, Peter, thank you so much. And as Peter mentions, it's National Voter Registration Day, so both parties are pushing to get people signed up to vote. Nearly 41 million members of Gen Z specifically, they're going to be eligible to vote this year. Even those who won't have turned 18 by November 5th are being urged to take action. So 20 states plus Washington, D.C., they'll allow anyone over 16 to pre-register, and then that way you're automatically added to voter lists once you turn 18. Here with me in studio is Elizabeth Clayroy. She is CEO of Generation Citizen. Elizabeth, good morning. Thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Love the pin. So fun. Okay, so let's talk about the process of registration, pre-registration. I think a lot of times when we see celebrity endorsements like the one from Taylor Swift, they come with this important reminder like, hey, by the way, though, you got to register. You can't just show up. You're not just going to vote. It's not just about picking who you're going to vote for or doing your research. It's also getting that done in time. Explain to us the importance of pre-registration.
Absolutely. It's a process, and we want to make sure that young people, especially if it's going to be their first time, that they've taken all the right steps to register to vote. What's exciting is, as you said, over 20 states allow young people 16 and 17 to pre-register. And that means you complete the same registration form, but until you are 18, that registration is pending, but it's sitting with the state. And so what that means is the day you turn 18, that shifts over to registration and you're able to vote. It's especially exciting to engage 16 and 17-year-olds to pre-register now because there's a lot of talk about what's going on, about how important our vote is. But some of those young people might turn 18 just before a special election, a local election, or an election that doesn't have as much attention. And so it's wonderful for them to have an opportunity to be voter ready as soon as the next election comes up. And for 16 and 17-year-olds, many of them are living in familiar environments. They're at home. They're going to high school. And so this is a time where they have some stability and may have the time, we hope, this week to register to vote. The year they turn 18 or 19, they might be very busy with moves, changing jobs, changing schools. And so if they care, if young people care about what's going on in our country, this is a great time to pre-register if they're 16 or 17.
For a 16 or 17-year-old listening right now, what should they go do this morning?
So they should first check what age pre-registration is allowed in their states. So for a lot of young people, it's not an option.
So is that something you just Google? Can I pre-register right now if I'm 16 in Nevada?
Yes. So they should check out Rise Vote. We have at Generation Citizen a toolkit we've created with QR codes so young people can see whatever state they're in, what is allowable in their state. But they also can check in with their state Secretary of State or Department of Motor Vehicles and find that information, as well as the deadline, which is equally important for young people to know when the deadline is for voter registration in their state.
And what's that website that they can go to?
So ours is generationcitizen.org, and then we have the Rise Vote Toolkit, which they can find there.
Okay, awesome. What issues are you hearing that really matter to young people? Because the question is, oh my gosh, it's a huge number, 41 million people going to be eligible to vote. But then that leads to the question, so how many do turn out and what may motivate them to turn out? I've been surprised in the conversations I've been having and in a big poll we just came out with here at NBC News, how important the economy is, even ahead of some issues I think that we traditionally associate with young people, like climate change or gun control, things like that. Economy is what I heard. What have you been hearing?
Absolutely. I mean, young people are, taking responsibility for their families, for making sure that they're able to put food on the table and think about housing affordability. So economic issues matter a great deal as well. But what we know about Gen Z voters who we talk to and even Gen Alpha behind them is that young people are thinking about issues more than they're thinking about parties. And that's really important. And that demonstrates, I think, a sophistication of civic engagement and civic leadership. They want to know who's going to be a problem solver on the issues that matter to them, whether those are economic issues or social issues or issues about the freedoms that they have to make sure that they're able to continue to thrive in this country.
Elizabeth Claiborne, it will be so fascinating to see what happens with this generation come this election. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you so much.
Let's turn now to the extreme weather that's been pummeling the East Coast this morning. Heavy rain will continue to soak parts of the Carolinas after a powerful storm swept through the area, bringing historic rains that inundated homes, stranded vehicles, and even prompted water rescues. NBC News correspondent Marissa Paul, Charlotte, North Carolina, with the latest, where we see action already behind her. Marissa, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. Well, the storm never fully formed into a tropical storm or a cyclone. In fact, it didn't even get a name. But whatever you want to call it, this storm battered the coast of the Carolinas, forcing rescues and leaving residents stunned at once-in-a-thousand-year rainfall.
This morning, a soggy start to the week for folks in the Carolinas, where residents are drying out from the fast-developing rainstorm that wreaked havoc along the coast.
The weather just kept getting worse and worse, and the rain just kept coming. I've never seen it come up this fast, this quickly.
Potential tropical cyclone 8 never fully formed enough for a name, but did plenty of damage nonetheless. Life-threatening flash flooding left the coastal town of Carolina Beach completely submerged after more than 15 inches of rain fell in 12 hours. Forecasters calling it a one-in-a-thousand-year event.
They kind of just turned Brunswick County into multiple islands.
Roadways looked like rivers, stranding some drivers.
It didn't look that high. The water did not look that high. You can see the car just completely almost went underwater.
In Brunswick County, some waving down a new ride after flooding out their own.
I know it was raining really hard, but I had no idea it was going to be this bad.
Highway 17 shut down for hours, leaving hundreds of cars stranded, parts of the road under as much as 7 feet of water.
My wife's pregnant. She's due in the next couple weeks. I got 3 kids. I'm about to do some off-roading if I need to.
One road even lapsed and took a car down with it. Now the coastal Carolinas looking to dry off from the storm that proved no name doesn't mean no impact.
So Savannah, Eastern Carolina is getting slammed by rain as we speak, and this unnamed storm is going to continue its way through Virginia. But back out here in Charlotte, we're getting a break from the rain. But if you can believe it, it was not even maybe an hour ago this bike path was completely submerged by the water. And so things are starting to recede and dry off here. But it's going to take a little time for the Carolinas to fully dry off and return back to normal from all of this storm. Savannah?
Marissa Parra, thank you so much. For more on the severe weather, let's check in on your morning news now weather. Angie Lassman's in studio with the latest. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Savannah. We've got that rain that you just heard Marissa talking about across the Carolinas and Virginia, specifically a big batch of that moisture working onshore as we speak. Elizabeth City, Norfolk, stretching down to Cape Hatteras, really starting to get in on that. We'll also be continuing to watch the inland areas as the center of that kind of area of low pressure works its way a little farther to the east. That big batch of moisture will shift a little farther inland 2, and that means that, you guessed it, more of that flooding concern today. Now, the good news is parts of the Carolinas will start to see things winding down as we get to the end of the day. But again, much of that is going to work across parts of the Appalachians, specifically the central Appalachians, and that's where we'll be watching for flood concerns as we deal with some more of this kind of tropical rain. Now, the coastal low will sit just offshore, but all that moisture works into the northeast for tomorrow. So that's the area that we'll watch for potential slowdowns, a little bit of a soggier kind of day. It'll affect our commute into the morning hours from basically New York to Washington, D.C. Even into the afternoon, we'll watch for this too. But the flooding, again, going to be an issue. Today, here's the spots that we're watching. Asheville stretching to Richmond, Norfolk, Cape Hatteras, Raleigh, all included in this. We have seen some of those flood alerts kind of wind down, many of them expiring, but we still have a couple million folks across this region included in that. So still the potential for some additional flooding with that rain on tap for today. The amounts anywhere from an inch to half an inch, or half an inch to an inch for more widespread areas. But notice some localized spots upwards of 2 to 3 inches, even isolated locations upwards of 6 inches. So we've got the potential to see some significant flooding for folks there. Meanwhile, above average temperatures continue. It feels like summer in Wichita today. Amarillo heads to those low 90s. We've got Minneapolis near 90. Omaha, too. We'll see Chicago hit a high of 86 degrees today. It'll be steamy in St. Louis with 90 this afternoon. And those warmer than normal temperatures continue into tomorrow. Mid 80s for Cincinnati and Chicago. Kansas City as well hits 86 degrees. Now, looking ahead to late week, upper 70s for New York City, not bad Thursday, Friday. We get a little bit of a bump down in those temperatures by Saturday with a high of 72 degrees. We hang on to the 80s in Pittsburgh, low 80s, that is, from Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So kind of a more mild pattern. We'll still keep the heat across parts of the Midwest and the Great Lakes, but it'll be a little more comfortable, a little cooler, a little more fall-like, of course, for late week and into early this weekend across parts of the Northeast. Savannah.
All right, Angie, thank you so much. Fall, here we come. There's much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including Meta's new push to prioritize the mental health of teens when they use Instagram. We'll chat with its global head of safety in just a little bit. But first, after the break, new insight into the final moments of that doomed Titan submersible and the chilling new photo of one of its parts now resting on the ocean floor. Stay with us. Those stories and more are up next. Welcome back. We are learning more this morning about the devastating loss of the Titan submersible that imploded last year during a sightseeing dive to the wreckage of the Titanic. A Coast Guard Board of Inquiry reports the mini-sub had dozens of equipment failures in the years leading up to the disaster. We are also learning the last words transmitted by the crew. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello, he has covered this from every angle. He was on scene during the search. He is watching the Coast Guard hearing, and he has the very latest for us. Tom, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Savannah. This is a 2-week Coast Guard hearing as investigators detail out multiple failures with Titan and warnings from top engineers that it simply was not safe to dive to such depths. But the CEO of OceanGate, who died in the implosion, he insisted the ship was safe. Their final transmission suggested their dive to Titanic was proceeding as planned. This morning, this newly released photo shows the tail cone from the Titan submersible resting on the ocean floor, not far from the wreck of the Titanic, and new details about Titan's final moments.
There were no transmissions which indicated trouble or an emergency aboard the Titan.
The Coast Guard releasing this animation showing Titan's descent while messaging with its support ship above, the Polar Prince. Among the crew's last words, "All good here." But then at 10:47 a.m., Titan messaged it was dropping weights, which could suggest it needed to surface. Suddenly, the support ship lost contact.
The Polar Prince continued messaging the Titan 2 or 3 times per minute with no response.
4 days later, search teams spotted Titan's wreckage not far from the Titanic. Months later, human remains. Lost in the disaster, Shahzada Dawood, his 19-year-old son Suleiman, British adventurer Hamish Harding, Titan's pilot Paul-Henri Nargelet, and Stockton Rush, the CEO of OceanGate, the parent company. At Monday's Coast Guard hearing, the engineer who helped design Titan said he refused to get inside.
He wanted me to be the pilot that runs the Titanic missions. And I told him I'm not getting in it.
Tony Nissen was among dozens of engineers who'd warned CEO Rush that the carbon fiber hull would not withstand extreme diving pressure. It could crack and implode. But Rush said he was pressing ahead.
I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur said, "You're remembered for the rules you break."
The Coast Guard reports Titan may have been hit by lightning in 2018, experienced dozens of issues during dives in 2021 and 22, and had been exposed to extreme cold in Newfoundland before the fatal dive in 23. The former finance director says the company was in trouble.
We basically didn't have any money coming in except for from investors while I was there.
On the waterfront in Everett, Washington, a simple stone marker to remember those who were lost. Again, this is a 2-week hearing. It runs through the end of next week. 24 witnesses in all, including OceanGate employees, engineers, and Coast Guard officers, really focused on whether Titan's design made any sense and whether that kind of material should be used on deep-sea submersibles going forward. The findings go to the Coast Guard Commandant and the NTSB. Any potential criminal referrals will go to the Justice Department. Savannah?
Tom Costello, so many questions remain, getting some answers here, and we know you will continue to bring us those. We appreciate it. Well, this morning, Meta is introducing new protections for teens on Instagram. Their accounts will now automatically become what is going to be known as teen accounts. This is going to limit who can contact teens, as well as the content they see on Instagram. Those under the age of 16 will need a parent's permission to use less protective settings. The new protections from Meta come after years of critics claiming that the tech giant deliberately targets young users and doesn't do enough to tackle the mental health toll its products take on them. Meta's global head of safety, Antigone Davis, joins us for more on this. She's here on set. Antigone, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Really nice to see you as well.
Congratulations on the announcement. First, I'd love if you could just explain here what is new today, what an adult version or sort of standard version of Instagram looks like, and then what this means if you're a teenager. What will you see? What will you experience?
Yeah, this is a major change. It fundamentally reimagines the parent-teen experience online. It's a built-in set of protections for teens that speaks specifically to parents' top concerns. And as you mentioned, if you're under 16 and you want to move to less restrictive settings, you won't be able to do so without your parents' permission.
So the big thing that I hear there, though, is that Instagram has to know how old you are, which we know this is not an issue unique to Instagram, but when it comes to social media, that's often part of the problem, right? Is children who are younger than they say they are getting onto these apps. How are you going to ensure that you know how old users are?
Yeah, well, that's something that we've definitely been thinking about. First of all, there are tens of millions of teens who actually give us their age, and we're able to put them automatically into these protections. What we've also done is built new ways to verify the age of teens. So, for example, as these protections roll out, if we see a teen try to change to or add an adult account to an adult age account to their experience, we're going to ask them to verify their age. If we see a teen change their age so that they're older, we're going to ask them to verify their age. We're also building technology to identify teens who may be not telling us the truth about their age and then putting them into these protective settings.
And what do you mean by verify? Because when you download Instagram, if you want to get a new app, I mean, it used to anyway be as simple as you just enter in a birthday. You could say your actual date, but change the year. Is that going to be more difficult to do something like that now?
When you sign up, you still give stated age. But when we are asking you to verify your age, what we will ask you to do is either provide an ID or we have a system that actually reads your facial features to identify whether you're over 18 or under 18.
What are the changes when it comes to content that will be served to certain ages?
It's a great question. I'm sure it's top of mind for parents because it's one of their top concerns. What we have are policies in place that are designed to say what's appropriate for everybody on the platform. We also restrict for people under the age of 18 certain content that they can't see, but maybe, for example, newsworthy for adults. Now, we also will not be recommending certain content to teens, content that doesn't necessarily violate our policies, but may be sensitive for someone under the age of 18.
So some of that content, as we've discussed in the past, has dealt with suicide, it's dealt with eating disorders, it's dealt with harmful challenges. In addition to this making it hopefully more difficult for that content to end up in front of eyes that are too young to be able to handle it, what's being done generally about that content that's harmful, period, about it being uploaded to the app?
So if content violates our policies, we have technology that's designed to proactively find that content and remove it from our platform. That technology is very accurate for most types of content. Over 95% of it is removed before people report it to us. But what this really does is, let me give you an example. So we have policies against nudity on our platform, and we will remove that content from our platform. But sometimes there's sexually suggestive content that you might see on our platform that doesn't violate those policies, but may not be appropriate. I certainly wouldn't have thought it was appropriate for my team to see. This will not recommend that content to teens.
Is this an acknowledgement of a problem?
It is designed to speak to parents. We have been talking to parents for many, many, many months and have heard from them that their top concerns are who their teen is connecting with, what's the content that they're seeing, and time that they're spending on their phones. So we now will be putting teens into a private account automatically. That's tens of millions of teens. They will see less inappropriate content, and they'll be told after an hour, hey, you need to take a break. And I think also importantly is parents, if they are part of our supervisory tools, they will actually be able to set hard limits for their teens of any particular time. And at night, they can turn the app off so their teen can get a good night's sleep.
That, I think, is such an interesting piece of this because I've done a lot of reporting. Of course, we know about the deteriorating mental health of our young people, but also how much sleep does contribute to that and how much having one of these and scrolling on it all night means that you're not getting the rest. Why is that an important piece of this?
Because we know for teens that they may be interested in engaging with their friends after school, in the evenings. Let me give an example of my own experience. With my daughter, we had a rule, 10 o'clock, put the phone down. I had to take that phone, put it on a nightstand. Yeah. Now, parents don't actually have to do that. If they have these supervisory tools set up, they can actually go in and between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., they can actually put their teen into sleep mode, make sure their teen gets a good night's sleep.
And this is automatic for users of a certain age.
All of these protections are automatic. I think that's really important. Parents do not have to be involved in order to get these protections. But if a parent wants to be involved, they can be involved. And if their teen is under 16 and wants to change these, they've got to get their parents' permission.
Antigone, thank you very much. Big news this morning. We appreciate you coming by to tell us.
Thank you.
Absolutely great to see you. Let's go now to what's making international headlines. We're going to start with record devastating flooding impacting much of Central Europe. We have NBC News international correspondent Claudio Lavanga joining us with that and other world headlines. Claudio, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah. That's right. At least 17 people are now being killed in floods as Storm Boris has been sweeping across Central Europe, battering countries like Austria, Poland, the Czech Republic and Hungary, which have all experienced extreme rainfalls. And in certain areas, a month's worth of rain fell within hours there. Now, at least 4 people died as a result of floods in Poland, which has declared a state of emergency. Another 3 people died in the Czech Republic, where thousands of residents were also left without hot water and electricity, and the same situation is developing in Austria and Romania. Let's go to Iran now, where the new president, Masoud Pezeshkian, promised that the morality police will no longer bother women for not wearing the mandatory hijab, headscarf. The president's comments come on the 2nd anniversary of the death in police custody of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, which sparked nationwide protests. Last week, the United Nations accused Iran of intensifying efforts to suppress the rights of women who were still being violently punished for breaking the dress code. And let's end this tour of the world in Thailand, where a baby hippo has become an internet sensation. The pygmy hippopotamus is called Mu Deng and was born in a zoo in eastern Thailand only 2 months ago. But after her caretaker started posting videos of her going about her day, like napping, walking around, or chewing her caretaker's knees while being hosed down for a shower, she became so popular she's already starring in a cosmetic ad. Well, now, Savannah, I thought that there was nothing cuter than baby pandas, but apparently baby hippos are up here.
I'd say that's open for debate, but pretty cute. Claudio, thank you so much. Well, coming up, an update on a disturbing NBC News investigation out of Texas this morning. A state medical school exposed for its shocking practices, and now a stunning reversal. Liz Kreutz has that story coming up right after this. We are back now with an exclusive investigation into a disturbing practice. A medical school in Texas was dissecting, studying, and leasing out the body parts of unclaimed people without the consent of that person, any survivors they knew. Now, after an NBC News investigation, the university has suspended the program. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz has this story.
Victor Carl Honey was a U.S. military veteran who served in the Army for nearly a decade.
He was very friendly. He was outgoing, a nice dresser.
After being honorably discharged, he began struggling with mental illness and homelessness. Then in 2022, he died of an apparent heart attack while living alone on the streets of Dallas. Honey was entitled to a burial with military honors, but instead, something else happened.
I think they think, homeless black man, he ain't got no family. They don't care about him. You were wrong about this one.
An NBC News investigation has found that Honey was among more than 2,300 people who died in the Dallas-Fort Worth region and were given to a state medical school that used and made money off their body parts, at times as their own families searched for them. For Honey, within a month of his death, the Dallas Medical Examiner's Office deemed him unclaimed, reporting phones for family members they tried were disconnected. And yet, he did have relatives, some living right there in Dallas. His ex-wife, Kimberly, and their 2 adult children say they had even visited Honey in a hospital months prior to his death.
To hear that your ex-husband has been deemed an unclaimed person, what's your reaction to that?
That's crazy. We're here. We've always been here. His son has his same name. How could he be unclaimed?
This is where Victor Honey's body was then taken, the University of North Texas Health Science Center, where, according to government documents, his body was then frozen, cut into pieces, and sent out to different medical groups across the country, all without his prior consent or his family's knowledge. Those documents show Honey's severed right leg sent to a Swedish medical device maker for $341. His torso shipped to a medical education company in Pittsburgh, which paid $900. And for $210, a pair of bones from his skull went to the U.S. Army for military medical training.
His right leg was sold.
Yes, ma'am.
His temporal bone, his torso.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think he would have wanted this?
No, he never wanted to be. The 10 years we were married, he never wanted to be an organ donor. We talked about it.
And Honey is not alone. NBC News reviewed thousands of pages of government records and data which reveal repeated failures to reach family members before declaring a body unclaimed. Our team has identified 12 cases in which families learned months or years later that a loved one had been provided to the medical school. 5 of those families found out what happened from NBC News, including Honey's, a year and a half after his death.
I don't believe they tried to find us. I don't believe they did. You can find people. NBC found me in a day. You can find people.
Why do you think they did it?
For money. They did it to him, a decorated military veteran. They'll do it to anybody. And that's not okay.
For 5 years, the University of North Texas Health Science Center has had agreements with Dallas and Tarrant counties to take their unclaimed bodies for free, saving them a combined $1 million a year in cremation and burial costs. It also helped the school, making it about $2.5 million a year by leasing body parts to outside groups, according to financial records.
Somebody needs to answer, or somebody's, for what they did, what they're doing.
For 10 months, our team has been seeking answers from both counties and the Health Science Center. All 3 declined our repeated requests for interviews, but in statements, the counties told us they would be reviewing their contracts. The Health Science Center at first defended its program, arguing using unclaimed bodies is critical in the training of future doctors. But just days before this story was set to air, it made a stunning reversal, telling NBC News it was suspending the program and firing the top officials who led it. Writing in a statement, as a result of the information brought to light through your inquiries, it has become clear that failures existed. They're hiring a consulting firm to investigate the program's operations.
My kids want answers. They want justice for their dad.
Honey's family recently received ashes that the county told them were his.
We don't believe those are his ashes, but we gave him and did what he deserved as a decorated military veteran.
And so, this summer, nearly 2 years after he died, the family finally laid Honey to rest.
You would think in this day's time, this doesn't happen here in America. But yeah, it does. It did.
Oh, Liz, a fascinating, devastating in some ways report with real impacts, as you saw there immediately. Do we know if this is happening anywhere else?
It's a really important question, Savannah, and it's a tricky question because there's actually no national data that tracks this. What we do know is that it is legal to use the body parts of unclaimed people for medical training in nearly every single state nationwide, but there have been many ethical concerns raised about it, and several medical schools have started halting the practice. We did a survey here at NBC News. We reached out to 51 major U.S. medical schools. The 44 that responded all said they do not use unclaimed body parts. The rest either declined to comment or did not respond.
Wow. All right, Liz Gritz, and I know you're going to have more reporting on this for us soon. Thank you very much. Well, coming up, we are talking about women in the workplace. We've got a brand new report. It's showing some pretty major progress over the years when it comes to gender in the workplace, but there is still work to be done. We're going to dig into the data. That's coming up next. We're back with a major annual study on the state of women in corporate America. It's called Women in the Workplace, and it's produced by consulting firm McKinsey and advocacy group Lean In, and it's aimed at helping companies improve gender diversity. Well, since the study launched 10 years ago, it's found there's been more growth in the female workforce across all levels, with the biggest change in senior leadership positions. That's some good news. Research shows that companies with the more female leaders benefit from great innovation, healthier cultures and performances. One of this report, and a senior partner at McKinsey, Alexis Krivkovich, is here to explain further, as well as the CEO and co-founder of Lean In, Rachel Thomas. Thank you both very much for joining us. Love when this report comes out and getting to speak with you all about it. Alexis, I'll start with you. Despite the progress that's been made, the report did reveal a pretty staggering number. You found that it would take 48 years, is the way that it was put, for the representation of white women and women of color in senior leadership roles to reflect the U.S. population. So I'm wondering, because I just said that we have seen some gains when it comes to those leadership roles, what that number means, and putting in context 48 years, exactly kind of like how bad or good that means things are.
Yeah, well, look, 2 generations to get full parity in the workplace is not, I don't think anyone would say that is a great scenario. It's also probably optimistic, if anything. And let me tell you why. You showed there the progress, and there is real progress that's been made, particularly at the top in the C-suite, where we now have 29% women. That's a huge change from 10 years ago when we saw just 17% women in the C-suite. So that's something to celebrate for sure. But those gains are really fragile. And when you get under the hood, the way companies have gotten there is not a process that they can really take forward. And here's what I mean. In the C-suite, a lot of that progress for women was because companies on average added a role at the top. These were what we call staff roles. So strategy, human resources, critically important, but you can't keep adding roles to add diversity to your C-suite. And at the same time, most of those roles they filled from the outside, which means their own process for promoting and growing diverse talent is broken on some level. So 48 years is a really long time to wait, but even that might be sooner than what we'll see if companies can't kind of pick up the gear and find some new strategies.
Wow, really interesting stuff there. Rachel, the report also revealed that there's been a steep drop in most companies' overall commitment to diversity in the last few years. Why do you think that is? And is it something that needs to get back on track? Is there something specific that we need to go back to?
Yeah, we only know what the data show, but we know that there's been a backlash in our culture around diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. And so likely that is one of the drivers of the decrease we're seeing. And listen, this really matters. Over the last 10 years, companies consistently told us they were more committed to gender diversity and more to racial diversity every year. This is the first time we've seen climb. So over the last years, companies get a mixed report. There's real signs of progress, there's real work to be done. And so this is the moment we need organizations to double down on advancing women and fostering inclusion and not take their foot off the gas.
Alexis, these kinds of conversations can often focus on steps women, right, can take to improve their situation. Tips for how to get ahead in the workplace, tips for your conversation with HR about getting a raise or getting a promotion. But how can companies put pressure on the whole, on men certainly, but just on the whole system for it to also work towards equity rather than it being on the individuals who are sort of the victims of the system?
Yeah, I mean, the good news is we can see clearly in the data what works. So we track the companies that break ahead, and there is a whole playbook that they put in place quite consistently. So it starts with a tone at the top. So rather than stepping back from their commitment, they're really doubling down on that, and they're voicing it very clearly. But they're also doing very specific things like creating diverse slates, ensuring that there's not bias in the hiring and recruiting processes that they're running. And one of the biggest unlocks they actually have is their managers. Most employees don't quit their company, quit their manager. And what we see is that companies are asking a lot more of their managers. The majority say they want to see their manager checking in on workplace culture and respectful environment, that coaching and supporting their employees. They're even giving them a lot more training, but less than half of employees will see some of those actions happening. In fact, women in particular will describe they don't get the support that they need to develop and think about advancement. And it's not actually surprising, because when you go back to companies and you say, what do you evaluate those managers on? Nearly 100% will say, well, of course, business performance. About half will say also a respectful workplace. But only about a third will actually say developing a next generation of talent and supporting women and women of color in particular equally so they can advance.
Alexis and Rachel, fascinating conversation, really important new data, and we appreciate always having this conversation every year. Thank you for joining us this morning. And if you are interested in participating in the 2025 survey, which is super, you can sign up at the Women in the Workplace website. Go there and get this data. It's important stuff. Appreciate it. Let's get to some final headlines. Former President Trump is dipping his toes into the crypto world. CNBC's Pippa Stevens joins us now with that and more. Money News. Pippa, good morning.
Hey, Savannah. Well, Donald Trump formally introduced his family's new crypto project on a live stream on X last night. Now, early descriptions of World Liberty Financial suggest it will be a sort of crypto banking platform where the general public will be allowed to borrow, lend, and invest in crypto. Founders also said on the live stream that there will be an accompanying token called WLFI. Trump and his family have been teasing the venture for over a month. The former president's eldest sons, Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr., began posting about the project in August. Starbucks announced North America CEO Michael Conway will retire after 11 years at the company and just 5 months into his current role. The news comes as newly appointed CEO Brian Niccol launches a turnaround plan focusing on Starbucks' operations in the U.S. Now, part of this plan includes creating a new leadership position. A spokesman told Bloomberg that the coffee chain is establishing a global chief brand officer to oversee product, marketing, customer insights, and creative concepts. And two Walmart heirs surpassed $100 billion in net worth for the first time ever. According to Bloomberg Billionaires Index, Jim Walton leads his siblings at $102.6 billion, with Rob Walton just behind at $100.4 billion. The Waltons have ranked as one of the richest families in the world for years, with this recent boost coming as shares of the retail giant continue to climb steadily over the last month and are currently trading at an all-time high. Savannah?
All right, Pippa, thank you so much. Well, coming up, it still feels like summer, at least in some places, but that's not stopping some big retailers from getting into holiday spirit a little early. After the break, 'tis the season for steals and deals, where you can snag some savings with less than 100 days until Christmas. That's a number you didn't need to know this morning. We've got you covered coming up next. Finally, this hour, we may only be in September, but the holiday shopping craze, well, it is getting underway. Some major retailers have started prepping their Christmas displays and coming out with special deal events to bring in eager customers looking to bag an early bargain. Wow, I could not be more different than those people. Watch me procrastinate until December 23rd. NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans has the info for us.
It's not even Halloween and big chain retailers are already gearing up for the holidays. Shelves stocked with Christmas decor and prices getting marked down early on all of your favorite gifts. For many consumers, they consider this the time to be making their holiday lists and checking them twice.
As the summer season comes to an end.
So now that we are in September, who all has started Christmas shopping?
It's that time of the year again, believe it or not, with holiday shopping already kicking off.
If y'all like to shop early, y'all need to head over to Sam's. They got some deals going on.
Nearly half of Americans say they plan on buying their gifts before Halloween.
Hey, what's that?
It's an early Christmas present.
A Christmas present?
That's right.
For who?
For you.
Get out of here!
And with Christmas just 99 days away, some major retailers are now unwrapping special deals to get consumers in a giving mood.
I do expect a lot of activity around that early October timeframe.
Best Buy plans to offer an exclusive member sale as soon as next week with special discounts on the latest tech and gadgets, as well as a Prep for the Holidays deals event in October. And Amazon is also getting into the early holiday spirit, announcing overnight the dates for Prime Big Deals Days next month.
We are seeing now our retailers trying to beat Amazon at their own game, and so they're coming out with their flashy sale maybe a week before Amazon Prime Day.
According to a recent report, holiday retail sales are likely to see a moderate increase, while online sales are expected to grow between 7 and 9% compared to last year. Consumers are ready to spend, but still price sensitive, with a recent Bankrate survey finding 28% stressed about prices, and 1 in 3 holiday shoppers say they expect to spend less this year. Though that's not stopping stores from rolling out Christmas displays early, revving up shoppers' excitement.
I just heard that Walmart put out all their Christmas stuff, and so we're going to go in and see if we can find anything good.
Before holiday fatigue sets in.
You got to be kidding me. They're already pushing Christmas.
For the 27% of consumers planning on taking on a form of debt, our experts say consider discount apps like Honey, Groupon, and Retail Me Not. Look to sign up for loyalty programs for your favorite retailers. And if you're shopping with a credit card, make sure you have a card that can give you cash back on your purchases. Back to you.
All right, Christine, thank you so much. That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now. Thanks for hanging with me this morning. Stay with us. The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.